Hi everyone, it's me, Maria, and I'm just sitting up in this tree right here. It's a beautiful day out here in BC, and I thought I would tell you guys a story. So this is a Irish story. It's about the Dagda, who is kind of like the all-father of Celtic mythology. He's known as the good god and the great god, meaning that he's great at whatever he does. He's very talented at many different things, and he's known to be very generous. He has this cauldron that it can feed whole armies of people. It never runs out. It's like this eternal cauldron of plenty. And so he's very generous with that, and he's a formidable warrior, and he has this club. It's so heavy that it takes 9 men to lift it. And when he strikes with one end of the club, it kills. But when he strikes someone with the other end of the club, it can bring them back to life. So the third thing in these stories, things always come in threes. The third magical object that the Dagda owns is this harp. And it's known as the four-angled harp. It plays. When he plays it, he can bring the changing of the seasons, and he sets the seasons in their right order by playing this harp. And he can also play it before a battle, and it will instill this like fearlessness in his warriors, and they will rush into battle full of courage. And at the end of the day, he'll play it when they come back from battle, and it will lift the sorrow and the weariness from their hearts. A very special harp. So anyways, there was a battle between the Fomorians and the Uaithne, and the Dagda is one of the Uaithne, the people of Danu. So he went off to fight in this battle, and he played his harp at the beginning of it, and it instilled this fearlessness in his tribe and his warriors, and they rushed off to battle, and he left his harp back at the camp. So some of the Fomorians get this idea that it would be a great loss to the Uaithne if they stole this magical harp. So a few of them creep away from the battle, and they go back to the Uaithne's campsite, and they find the harp and they take it. And then they run away, they leave, and they travel all day, and finally they find this old abandoned castle where they hide out. And the battle continues, but finally, in the end, the Uaithne are victorious. And they come home, they march home, like carrying each other, helping each other. Finally, they reach their campsite, and they sit down, they build a fire, and one of the soldiers says, Dagda, could you play your harp for us? So he goes to get his harp, and he discovers that it's gone. So he walks back over to the fire, and he says, "My harp is missing. Is there anyone here who will come with me to look for it?" Now, everyone is very tired. They've just won a battle. They've been fighting hard all day, and they're exhausted. But 2 men step forward and say, "We'll come with you." And those men are Lulambada, the sun god, and Ogma. Ogma is like the man of speech, communication, and eloquence. And he's the Dagda's brother. So they come and they stand behind the Dagda, and the three of them set off on a journey. And finally, they find the old abandoned castle where now all of the Fomorians, all the defeated Fomorians are staying there. And they go up to the doors and they look through one of the windows, and the Dagda sees his harp hanging on the wall. And he lifts up his arms and he calls his harp back to him. And the harp, it responds to its master, and it leaps off of the wall and it flies through the air and through the window and into the Dagda's arms. But this sound wakes up the sleeping Fomorians, and they get up and they rush outside and they see the three travelers and they surround them and they raise their spears, they grab their axes and they come at them. And the three travelers are like, oh no, shit, what are we gonna do now? Like, they're fearsome warriors for sure, but they're no match for an entire army, defeated or not. So they look at each other like, what are we gonna do? And Lou turns to the Dagda. He says, Dagda, play your harp. So the Dagda grabs his harp and he starts to play. And it is a joyful song. It's got rhythm. It's got a wonderful beat. It's like a jig. It's like the first ray of sunshine on a spring morning after a long winter. It's like the first few crocuses breaking out of the ground. And it just, suddenly the whole mood lightens. And the Fomorians kind of look at each other and they look at the three travelers and they kind of forget what they were so upset with. And they start to like tap their toes a little bit. They start to snap their fingers, and suddenly they're all doing a jig. And they're dancing around. One of them calls for some mead. It was almost as if they had won the battle. They are so happy. That's the power of this harp. It can bring on these moods. And the three, the Dagda and Ogma and Lou, they look at each other like, oh, wow, close one. We might have just got out of this. So they prepare to leave. And they slowly start backing away, in time to the music. And finally they reach the steps. They go down the steps of the castle, and then they realize that the Dagda realizes he's gonna have to stop playing his harp. So they can go. So he does, and they turn around. They're quickly walking away. But as soon as he stops, playing, the Fomorians, they remember what they were so upset about, and they see the three travelers taking off with the harp, and they grab their battle axes, they grab their spears, they grab their swords, and they run down the castle steps, and they surround them again, and they start to like raise their weapons, and they're coming in, and they're about to kill them when Ogma is like, Dagda, play your harp. So again, the Dagda starts to play his harp. And this time it is a sad song. The saddest song you've ever heard. It's like water falling in the middle of the night when there's no moon and no stars and no surety of a sunrise. It's like 10,000 widows crying. It's like the gnashing of the teeth, dark in the darkest pits of the underworld. This is a song to make you quiver and quake. This is a song full of an ocean of tears. And the Fomorians, they look at themselves and each other, and they start to cry, and they drop their weapons in anguish, and they start to pull out their hair, and they wonder what they're doing there, and they wonder what the purpose of life is. And Lou and Ogma and the Dagda, they look at each other and they said, oh, phew, this might just work. Let's hope for the best. But to get out of the circle of Fomorians that have pretty much come all the way around them, the Dagda, he has to stop playing his harp for a minute so he can escape them. And as soon as he stops playing, the Fomorians remember their anger and their wrath, and they pick up their weapons again and they say, not this time, you three. You are not going to escape. And so they raise their spears and they clash their swords together and they come at the three travelers. And Lu and Ogma, they're like, oh shit. They look at the Dagda like, Dagda, come on, play your harp one more time. So the Dagda starts to play his harp. And this time he plays a lullaby. Sweet as a nightingale's song, the notes lift off the harp just as if they're songbirds flying into the night. And the wind starts to calm down, and the stars come out to listen. And even the beautiful sickle moon rises in the sky and comes a little bit closer to earth so it can hear the wondrous notes. And the Fomorians, once again, they drop their weapons and start to feel this heaviness come upon their eyelids, and slowly they start to kneel down on the ground, and their shields make such good pillows. And suddenly they feel the pull of that nameless master. Sleep. And gently, slowly, they start to drift off into slumber. And the three travelers, they pick their way over the sleeping Fomorians, and they start to walk back across the plain. The Dagda keeps playing his harp, and he plays it all the way back to their camp, and it has never been stolen since then. Thanks for listening, guys. Have a great day. Mwah.